Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a genuinely paradigm-shifting essay by Marc Bates. It's the kind of piece that's going to completely transform how you view human identity and, honestly, even how you view the physical limits of your own body. We're going to explore exactly why Jesus represents true humanity. And spoiler alert, it's not by escaping human limits, but by fully, totally embracing them.
So, what does it actually mean to be human? We have to start with this profound question because, as scholar Joshua R. Farris notes, how we answer this, it changes absolutely everything. Do we view human beings as mere biological physicalism? Just a random bunch of neurological processes? Are we just immortal souls trapped in some kind of fleshy prison? Or are we something far, far more majestic than that?
To figure that out, let's contrast our modern utilitarian assumptions with the Hebraic biblical view. Culturally, we tend to wrongly base a person's worth on a functional view. We look at things like cognitive capacity, physical wholeness, or just what a person can contribute to society. But the biblical text flips this completely on its head. It grounds human dignity in an ontological view. What that means is our worth is an unbreakable divine decree. It's a status we are given, absolutely not a skill we possess.
And that leads us right to the core concept of the Imago Dei, or the image of God. Back in the ancient Near East, only kings or high priests were considered the image of God. Kings would literally set up statues of themselves in conquered lands just to show their authority. But Genesis brilliantly democratizes this whole concept. It declares that all humans, men and women equally, are the living, breathing, physical likeness of the Creator, placed right here in the cosmic temple of creation to act as royal priestly representatives.
Now, this completely shatters our cultural narrative. We so often just assume that our physical limits, needing sleep, feeling completely exhausted, getting hungry, or just aging are these tragic flaws caused by the fall. But the text actually reveals that these boundaries were part of the original, very good design. Finitude is not a sin. It was originally intended to keep humanity joyfully dependent on the Creator as finite, limited beings.
So, if being physically limited wasn't the problem, what actually went wrong? Well, the real crisis in Eden wasn't about humans being physically weak. It was about humanity trying to erase that fundamental boundary between creature and creator. They rejected their creaturely finitude, they desired absolute autonomy, and they attempted to become autonomous gods strictly on their own human terms.
And this human alienation didn't just stop in Eden. It was actually compounded by three progressive cosmic rebellions. First, we have the Edenic rebellion, where humanity yields to the deceitful serpent. Then, the transgression of the Watchers in Genesis 6, which brought illicit cosmic boundary crossing and violence. And finally, the disinheritance at Babel, where humans tried to build an imperial counterfeit city. Through all of this chaos, humanity lost their practical glory and their direct access to the divine presence. But, and this is absolutely vital to remember, they permanently retained their underlying Imago Dei status.
Section 1. Jesus, the archetypal human. Validating flesh and finitude.
This brings us to Jesus of Nazareth, the absolute core focus of our explainer today. He represents the ultimate image of God, not primarily because of his abstract divinity, but precisely because of his complete, vulnerable, and mortal humanity. He is the archetypal human who shows us what we were always meant to be. He didn't just wear some docetic human suit. He wasn't just pretending to be human. He fully embraced creaturely finitude. He experienced real biological hunger in the wilderness, physical thirst on the cross, profound exhaustion that literally led him to sleep through a raging storm, and deep emotional grief, weeping at the tomb of Lazarus. He proved once and for all that human weakness is not an impediment to divine glory. It's actually the very vessel for it.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the Gospel of John structures Jesus' passion as a deliberate new creation week. It maps perfectly. Jesus enters a garden to face darkness in Gethsemane, which directly mirrors Eden. He physically wears the Genesis 3 curse of thorns right upon his brow. And then on the sixth day, Friday afternoon, he declares, "It is finished," echoing God finishing the original creation right before resting in the tomb for the Sabbath.
We see this culminate in a moment of massive, dramatic irony. Pontius Pilate presents a bleeding, beaten Jesus to the roaring crowd. Intending to mock him, Pilate declares, "Behold, the man!" But in doing so, he accidentally proclaims a monumental theological truth. Standing right there is the uncontaminated true human, the exact image of God radiating divine glory through absolute physical self-surrender.
We can see this so clearly when we contrast the first Adam with Jesus, the last Adam. While the first Adam grasped for self-exaltation, sought independent equality with God, and ultimately brought about exile, Jesus did the exact opposite. Even though he was in the form of God, he emptied himself to take on a servant's nature. He exercises true human power through total, radical obedience, and in doing so, he perfectly restores humanity's original royal calling.
Moving into Section 2, Contagious Holiness, Overcoming the Forces of Death.
You see, Jesus didn't just model true humanity. His physical embodied ministry actively went to war against the cosmic forces of death and impurity. Scholar Amy Peeler points out a really beautiful symmetry here. Sometimes people ask if Jesus' maleness excludes women from this archetypal representation. But the incarnation fundamentally depended on female flesh. Just as the first woman came from a man without female participation back in Genesis, the perfect true human came from a woman's womb without any male participation, honoring both sexes completely equally as image bearers. And Jesus used that physical body to literally rewrite the rules of reality. In the ancient Levitical system, biological impurity and death were highly, highly contagious. If something clean touched something unclean, the clean thing became defiled. But Jesus systematically reverses this entire flow of contamination. When Jesus touches the unclean, they don't defile him. Instead, the unclean becomes purified. It's an incredible reversal.
Just think about these wild encounters of contagious holiness. Jesus reaches out and physically touches a leper. A bleeding woman touches his garment, which normally would defile him under Leviticus 15. He takes the hand of a dead girl. But instead of becoming defiled by disease or corpses, Jesus' powerful, infectious holiness just flows outward. He cures diseases and brings resurrected life back to physical bodies, proving that the human body itself is the target of divine redemption.
Section 3. The Restored Human Vocation. The Promised Plan of God. Jesus doesn't just rescue souls by extracting them from their physical existence so they can go float on some clouds. No. He purifies the body itself to restore our original royal priestly vocation. To see the big picture of how this works, we can look at Walter C. Kaiser Jr.'s concept of the Promised Plan. This maintains the organic, unbroken unity of Scripture. Crucially, Jesus' arrival doesn't replace ethnic Israel. Instead, he fulfills their calling as the true Israelite servant, establishing a single organic line of divine promise, stretching all the way from Eden right to the New Jerusalem.
And according to Romans 11, Gentile believers are grafted right into the nourishing root of Israel's promises. Together, Jewish and Gentile believers in the Messiah make up one new humanity, a living, spirit-filled temple. And this unified people, they are destined for a bodily resurrection where heaven and earth will finally, fully unite.
So here's the absolute crucial point. Because Jesus validated human flesh, finitude, and vulnerability, we have a profound ethical mandate today. The truth that human dignity is an ontological status conferred by God provides a rock-solid, principled barrier against utilitarian bioethics. We have a firm biblical basis to protect the vulnerable, from the unborn all the way to those with severe cognitive impairments or dementia.
We really must understand that a person in a coma, or someone facing a severe disability, retains their full, indestructible status as the image of God. Their worth is granted by a sovereign divine decree. It's not based on what they can produce, how smart they are, or what they can physically do. Every single human being possesses this inalienable worth.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to chew on. If our worth isn't based on our abilities, but on the indestructible divine status reflected in the true human, Jesus Christ, how will you treat the next finite, vulnerable person you encounter? Thank you so much for learning with us, and may you see the image of God in absolutely everyone you meet.